Patrick McEnroe has been calling tennis matches for more than 20 years. The man does not get rattled easily. He has watched 5-set marathons. He has watched careers implode on live television. He does not throw around warnings just to fill airtime. But last week he said one sentence, and every tennis insider stopped what they were doing. He was not talking about Sabalenka. He was not talking about Coco Gauff. He was talking about a 21-year-old sitting at number 20 in the world. Her name is Alex Eala. Here is exactly what he said. The USTA better make sure they put her on some big courts. The crowd is going to be wild for her. Sit with that. A respected American broadcaster is publicly telling the organization that runs the US Open how to schedule its own tournament before a single ball has been struck in the main draw. This is the same US Open that hosted Serena Williams, that hosted Venus. And now a former player turned analyst is warning the tournament to be careful with a woman who has never won a Grand Slam in her life. So what is actually going on here? Is this a warning about danger? Or is McEnroe seeing something the rest of us have not caught on to yet? Because Eala has not done anything wrong. No scandal, no smashed racket, no clash with an umpire. By every normal measure, she is the easiest athlete in the world to root for. So why would a man like McEnroe feel the need to say this out loud right before the biggest tournament in American tennis? Something has been quietly building around this player for months. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what triggered that warning. To get there, we need to rewind to the courts of North America this summer, because what happened there was not normal. It was loud, and it kept getting louder. Eala plays left-handed. She is from the Philippines. At 13 years old, she moved across the world to Spain to train at the Rafa Nadal Academy, chasing something almost nobody believed was possible. A tennis star from a country of over 100 million people that had never produced a single top-level player in this sport. Fast forward to this year, Eala wins her first WTA title in Washington, beating American Jessica Pegula in the final. She climbs to a career high of number 20 in the world, the highest ranking any Southeast Asian woman has ever reached. But rankings barely explain what is happening here, so forget the ranking for a second. When Eala knocked out defending champion Iga Swiatek at Wimbledon this year, the full match replay pulled 998,000 views on YouTube. When Serena Williams made her comeback match against Maya Joint, that replay drew 122,000. Read those numbers again. A 20-year-old ranked outside the top 15 at the time is pulling in 8 times the audience of arguably the greatest athlete this sport has ever produced. And this was not built by one viral moment. This is happening because 114 million people suddenly have a reason to care about tennis. Basketball was always king in the Philippines, then boxing. Tennis was never in the conversation. Until now, a left-handed underdog with a story out of a movie. And an entire nation watching her every move like it is a national event. That is why analysts who have seen it all are suddenly paying very close attention. But popularity alone is not a warning. A warning means something could go wrong. And what happened next, on real courts, in front of real crowds, is where things start to get complicated. Let's start in Washington. Pegula was playing in her own country, in front of what should have been her own crowd. But by the third set, the stadium had turned. Completely. She did not look nervous. She looked out of place in her own country, being drowned out by chance for a visitor from the Philippines. That is not a normal atmosphere for a WTA final. Now, Toronto tournament director Carl Hale has run that event for years. He has seen legends come through. But he said something that stopped people cold. We have never seen anything like that in Toronto before. Every match she played, it sold out. Every match, not the final. Every single round from her very first packed the venue. It got so intense, the tournament opened a concession stand selling chicken adobo and lumpia, Filipino comfort food, at a tennis tournament in Canada. A major tournament changed its menu because of the fans following one player, but not everyone is thrilled. There have been real complaints about the noise, about fans who do not know tennis etiquette, when to clap, when to stay silent. Basketball culture, loud and constant, is now showing up inside quiet venues built around a completely different kind of silence. That creates real friction between longtime fans and a brand new wave that never learned the unwritten rules. Now imagine all of that landing in New York, a tournament built entirely on order and tradition. If Washington created discomfort and Toronto created logistical chaos, what happens when that same energy lands in front of the entire American tennis establishment live on national television with nowhere to hide? Nobody at the USTA has said publicly how they plan to handle it. Now, go back and reread what McEnroe actually said, word for word. The USTA better make sure they put her on some big courts. The crowd is going to be wild for her. There is no fear in that sentence. No concern about safety. What he actually said was a warning about opportunity, specifically the danger of wasting it. He was not telling the USTA to be careful with Eala, he was telling them to be careful without her. If they underestimate what she brings and bury her on some forgotten outer court, they are the ones who lose. Everything you just heard, the sold-out sessions, the drowned-out crowd, the adobo stand, every clickbait headline trained you to read is a problem. Flip the lens for 1 second. What if that is not a crisis at all? What if that is the single most valuable asset any Grand Slam could stumble into? The WTA does not have one dominant queen right now the way it used to. Swiatek, Sabalenka, Gauff, Pegula, all brilliant, but none of them pulls in casual fans who normally never watch tennis. The sport has been searching for a spark, and it just found one, wrapped in a Philippine flag, holding a racket in her left hand. Picture a concert venue, realizing tickets are selling faster than anyone predicted. The promoters do not panic. They scramble to book a bigger stage and call it the best problem they have ever had. That is exactly where the USTA stands right now. Eala is currently projected as the 17th seed. 17th, which means she is not guaranteed a spot on the biggest courts in the early rounds. She could easily end up tucked away on a smaller court in round 1, the exact scenario McEnroe is pointing at. So this was never a reaction to something that had already gone wrong. It was a message fired at organizers before a single scheduling decision was locked in. Do not bury this story. Do not treat this like an ordinary 17th seed. And the evidence backs it up. New York City alone is home to more than 250,000 Filipinos and Filipino Americans, sitting right in the tournament's backyard. Tournaments have seen this pattern before, with Brazilian and Argentine stars turning entire sections into a wave of noise. Apply that same math here. Then there is the fan who showed up in Toronto wearing a full inflatable blue dinosaur costume with a Philippine flag cape, danced in the stands, and became known online as Ealasaurus. Weeks later, that same costume showed up again at Flushing Meadows. Nobody paid for that. That is organic fan culture crossing borders on its own. And here is the subtle piece. Eala was originally projected to fall just outside the seeded field. Then Victoria Mboko withdrew with an injury, and that single withdrawal bumped Eala up to the 17th seed, the highest of her career. The tournament almost had this decision made for them by pure chance. 250,000 fans in the tournament's own backyard, a viral fan symbol crossing continents on its own, a seeding position built on luck rather than design. That is exactly why McEnroe's comment lands so differently once you see the full picture. He was reacting to a wave that is already moving faster than the tournament's own scheduling meetings. So let's go back to where we started. One sentence. The USTA better make sure they put her on some big courts. Now, you know what it actually meant. Not a warning about danger. A warning about missing the single biggest storyline sitting in front of the entire tournament. Eala at the 17th seed means she avoids the very top seeds in the earliest rounds, which means there is a real path for her to keep winning and keep pulling those fans deeper into the tournament with every round she survives. If that happens, this stops being a story about one player having a good week. It becomes the moment American tennis media has to admit that the next great commercial force in this sport might not come from inside the United States at all. So here is the question this leaves you with. Is the US Open actually ready for what happens if Eala keeps winning? Not in terms of talent evaluation, in terms of court capacity, security, broadcast scheduling, everything that comes with a crowd nobody fully modeled for. Right now, nobody outside that organization knows the answer. And that uncertainty is exactly what makes this the most fascinating subplot heading into this tournament. If Eala wins her first-round match, this conversation gets louder within hours. If she keeps winning after that, we are watching the birth of something tennis has never seen before. A player whose fan base might be growing faster than her own ranking can keep up with. So if you want to see exactly how this plays out, make sure you are subscribed before that first match begins. Because this story is not slowing down, it is only getting started. And you are going to want to be here when we find out exactly how right Patrick McEnroe turns out to be.